What's going on YouTube? Today I bring you my Week 15 predictions for the 2021 NFL season. I am a day late, but however, this is truthfully this was my prediction for Thursday Night Football. I did have the Chiefs winning 25-20. And the Chiefs did pull out the game. Overtime rules still need to be changed. That's pretty evident. But this was truthfully my prediction, was the Chiefs winning it. And they did a good job. Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce went off. The defense stopped the charge when necessary. Brandon Staley, unfortunately, did not coach the best game in the world. In fact, they probably could have won it before even overtime if Staley had changed a few things. I think he took a few risks, worth taking. But at the end of the day, it did lose them the game. And honestly, probably the division. I think the Chiefs have enough of a good lead at this point. Chargers don't have the easiest schedule in the world. I think the Chiefs have pretty much taken the division at this point. So good for them. And I was correct on this Chiefs game. Moving on, we have Saturday Night Football. And I'm sorry, but the NFL, they need to change their policies about games and postponing and stuff, because the fact that some games get postponed, like the Ravens and Steelers last year, but teams like, the Broncos last year when they literally didn't have a quarterback, or the Browns this week who have just basically no one on that roster, they don't get a game postponed, and it really doesn't make any sense. And I mean, honestly, I think the best choice of all would probably be to just postpone every game this week, because it just doesn't make sense to have a team like the Browns play right now with the roster that they have. And so unfortunately, even with some nice momentum going for them right now in some categories, I've got to give the Raiders this win, because I just don't think a Raiders team that's truly not that bad is going to lose to a Browns team that is just so hurt and injured because of COVID, I think the NFL really needs to think about their policies more about like what determines postponing, because it really seems obvious that they're playing favorites with teams like the Steelers and Ravens, and teams like the Browns or the Saints or the Rams or the Broncos get left behind in the dust because they're not a favorite of the NFL. And so, unfortunately for this game, like the Browns, they've got nice momentum, and I'd really love to see them make a push for the playoffs, but it's hard when, you're basically your entire team's out. Your head coach has COVID as well, and they got to play a Raiders team that is still looking to potentially make that push for the playoffs. So, unfortunately, I do have to have the Raiders winning this one in a close game. And then moving on to the Patriots and the Colts. And this is going to be my game of the week. This is going to be a pretty fantastic game. You got two teams who have really been hot recently, coming off of bye weeks. And, the Patriots, they're really looking to keep establishing dominance in the AFC, whereas the Colts, they're looking to make the playoffs. And so, you got two teams that are great right now. Colts defense, great. Patriots defense, elite. The Colts offense has actually been doing really good, mainly because Frank Reich is such a great coach. And then you have the Patriots offense, who's also been doing great despite not having the best quarterback in the world, with Bill Belichick, who's also a fantastic coach. This is just such a great matchup. It's one of those just exciting football games that you really want to watch. And I'm actually a little surprised that Indianapolis is favored in this game. I get that they've been really good recently, but the Patriots have been on another level, really. If you're able to pass the ball 3 times in the game and still beat a good team like the Bills, you're on a different level. And so with the Patriots, it's not my betting game of the week, because there's certainly many worlds where the Colts win this game. Like I said, it's going to be an entertaining game. I've been pretty accurate on both these teams this year. I think the Patriots are just a better football team who's looking to get a dominant win over the Colts, because you beat the Colts here, and they're back to 500 and really struggling for that playoff spot at that point, in a very tight race right now in the AFC. And if you're the Patriots, you're looking to take over that division, or not the division, the conference, and I think they're the number 2 seed right now behind just the Chiefs, actually, because they won. So, yeah, the Patriots, I just think that they're too good. So I have a close, great game. Again, it's my game of the week. I do have the Patriots pulling this one out. Then we have the Titans in Pittsburgh. And, the Titans are only favored by 1 point, but I'm taking them pretty handedly in this game. A team that's they've been rolling. They've had their tough losses at points this year, but the Steelers are just such an inconsistent team with a lot of injuries a lot of the time. Their defense has been not on the same level as it was, last year. and their offense can get things going at times, but I don't think it's enough to beat a really good team like the Titans here, who are also pushing for that number one seed. There's like 3 teams right now that are really pushing for that, and it's the Titans, the Chiefs, and the Patriots. So it's kind of like a 3-way race there, and the Titans are going to want to keep in that race. So I do have them beating the Steelers in not a very good game, but a very good game for the Titans here. Then we have the Panthers in Buffalo, and I think Buffalo's favored by a little bit too much, even if I do have them covering by more than that. I think maybe the Panthers should be giving a bit more of a betting chance, just because the Bills have not been great this year. Their offense has definitely struggled at points, and their defense has certainly also struggled at points. Panthers know better, though. I mean, they do. Sam Darnold's just not a good quarterback. Cam Newton's not a good quarterback. And they've got some great weapons on that team, but that offensive line and the quarterback situation, you get those figured out, and you've got yourself a Super Bowl contender there. I mean, the defense is great and young as well, and they've got some really nice young weapons on offense. And I'm sorry, but Christian McCaffrey's injury prone, so you might be needing to look to get a new running back. But regardless, Panthers, they're still a solid young team with good talent. The Bills, they're just better. At home, you're really needing a win here to be back again in that front of that playoff race, because you're not winning the division at this point, most likely. So you're really battling for that AFC, wild card, and there's like 6 or 7 teams battling for those final 3 spots right now. So, if you're the Bills, you got to win this game, and I think you got to look good while doing it. So I will take the Bills 28-13. Then we have Washington in Philadelphia, and this is an important game for both teams. Philadelphia obviously having the edge in this one just because it's in Philadelphia. They're coming off the bye week. They had a week of rest, and they're really able to regroup here, I think. Whereas with Washington, you were on a very good hot streak for a while there. I mean, they won some very good, impressive games, and not just against like bad teams. Like, they won against some good teams. However, after last week, where they looked good still. They did look good, but you did lose. And the week before that against the Raiders was not the prettiest either. So even though they've been solid, they've kind of been cooling down recently. And when you have these two teams that are, again, pushing for that playoff spot, because the NFC has just as tight of a wild card race as the AFC right now, and your division opponents in this, I think it's going to be a really good, close game. I think Philadelphia is favored by way too much. I didn't quite make it my betting game of the week because I'm not super confident that Washington can pull this one out, again, just because it's in Philadelphia. Eagles have had that week of rest. They're not coming off of a loss like from last week. So because of that, I will give Philly the edge in this one, but I definitely think that if, it's not my betting game of the week because I feel pretty confident in another one, but this could definitely be one for you because that is a decent payout. But yeah, I am going to take the Eagles in this game, which sucks because I did have high hopes for Washington, and I think that would pretty much effectively be the end of their season at that point if they did lose this game. But we'll have to see. I will take Philly in this one in a close game. Then we have my betting game of the week with the Texans in Jacksonville, and I have the Texans pulling this one out. I predicted the Texans to go 0-17 this season. They've won 2 games, and one of them was against the Jaguars. I think they're going to beat the Jaguars both times. Honestly, it's just, now especially that you don't even have Urban Meyer. I mean, I guarantee Darrell Bevell will be a better head coach than Urban Meyer. I mean, I could make a whole rant as to why Urban Meyer is the worst head coach of all time. It's legitimately sad how bad of a coach he was, and honestly, how bad of a guy he was to his players and his coaching staff. So I guarantee to some degree, you literally cannot be worse than Urban Meyer. I don't think Darrell Bevell is going to be a good coach, though, especially here in your first game on a short week, because keep in mind, I mean, they fired Urban Meyer on like a Wednesday, so even then you're giving Bevell less time than even normal for, short notice that he's going to be coaching in this game. Yeah, it's at home, but I mean, Jacksonville, home is like a couple thousand fans for you, and for the Texans, it's like they're still a respectful team. They have respectful coaching with experienced players, and versus a team that's so volatile like the Jaguars, I think I'll take them in this game and to go 2-0 against the Jaguars this year. And I feel pretty confident, to be honest. I feel pretty confident that the Texans pull this one out. Maybe not by a landslide or anything, but I do have the Texans pulling off the upset here, though. And I feel confident, so this is my betting game of the week. Moving on, we have Dallas in the New York City. and except it's actually New Jersey. Um, I mean, with Dallas, it's pretty obvious to me that they're just a much better football team. I think that Washington's a better football team than the Giants, and they still beat them. So, and that's not a logic I love to use, obviously, but with the Giants, they're just not. They've not been a good football team this year. The defense has struggled. Daniel Jones, just not the guy. I think it's pretty clear at this point. They've been dealing with injuries. Joe Judge, not the right coach either. Dallas, they've just got so much more going for them. They're looking to potentially win that NFC, the NFC, so they're in that race, and you're going to keep it going. You can't drop a divisional game like this to your opponent, so I do have the Cowboys winning this one pretty easily. Then we have the blowout of the week for me. We have the Cardinals, arguably the best team in football right now, versus the Lions, arguably the worst team in football right now. I mean, I think they're better than the Texans and the Jaguars. I think the way the Lions play with heart is very admirable, actually. I really do love Dan Campbell as a head coach, and, it's going to lead to something similar to success, at least in Detroit terms, in the future. But, it's the Cardinals. They've been amazing this year. I don't think it's much of a obvious. I don't need to explain why I'm taking Arizona in this game. Again, the one thing I can't say is that Detroit, they do play with a lot of heart. I do love some of the aspects of their team, and I think they do have something going for the future potentially. Maybe not like Super Bowl success, but they have something, and so I think they'll be able to get a field goal in the game. I think they'll play with heart, but the Cardinals are going to handle them pretty easily. Then we have another blowout here with the Jets in Miami. And Miami, I mean, they've been so hot recently. They're coming off of a bye week, whereas the Jets, I mean, they've just been dropping games left and right. And it's not even dropping because they're supposed to win them. I mean, they're just losing them. Miami, just a much better team than the Jets. And, the Jets, I mean, their defense has been god-awful, like easily the worst in football. Their offense has struggled. Whereas with the Dolphins, I mean, once they finally figured out, what Tua was able to do right now, that defense got going because they weren't on the field all the time, and their offense is able to move the ball somewhat well. They should have a fine job with playing a volatile team like the Jets as long as they're playing safe football, and that's what they do. I also think the hate on Tua needs to stop because, sure, he takes a lot of short passes, but the fact that Tua has been as efficient as he's been with unarguably the worst offensive line in football, to me, that's pretty crazy. Again, just get that man an offensive line. He'll have more time to throw. He won't have to take those short passes. You can open up the offense, get those higher scoring games from your offense, and you become a legitimate team. So it's all about the offensive line at this point for the Dolphins. I have them moving up to 500 after this game. Then we have the Bengals in Denver, and this is quite the confusing game. I've not been particularly accurate with either of these teams this year. Both 7-6, both making a strong push for the playoffs in two very tight divisions. Denver is favored by 2.5 points here, and I'd imagine that mainly comes from the fact that they're at home. Neither one of these teams have really been dealing with too many COVID injuries. Denver's dealt with a lot of just injuries, period, this year. It's actually pretty insane. But COVID-wise, there's not any players out that, as far as I know, that are out from this game. So really this is a game where you really got to look at matchups, I think, because when it's something where they're such similar teams, it really comes down to just the core matchups. And a lot of games come down to those anyways, but you really think about it, Denver, their defense has been great recently. So is the Bengals, right? So you got both there. So for me, I think the X factor in this game really is Teddy Bridgewater because we know the Bengals offense is elite. It definitely can get those big plays. And when you have an offense that has guys like Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon, Joe Burrow, you're spreading out the field. And for a team like Denver who likes to play a lot of man coverage, that makes it difficult to cover, such a spread out offense like that. So my worry is that the Bengals are just going to be able to be hitting those big plays on Denver. But as long as they can keep them limited, and as long as Teddy Bridgewater plays good, because we know Denver has a great ground game. There's only been, I think, 7 duos in the NFL history to run for over 1,000 yards each, and Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams are on that pace currently. We know Denver has a great ground game. We know they have a great defense. Same thing with the Bengals. Again, that's why I say Teddy Bridgewater for me really is the X factor. If he's having a good day, Denver will pull this one off. If he's not having a good day, the Bengals will pull this one off. So it's like a coin flip. I mean, it really is a coin flip. I am going to take Denver. It is in Denver, and I think Teddy's on. I think he's due for a good game because he has given us a couple good performances this year against better teams. He just needs to give one this week because Denver really fighting for their lives again in the thick of that AFC Wildcard Race. So between the two, mainly because they're at home, but I think Teddy does have a good game. I will take Denver 19-16. Then we have the Falcons in San Francisco, and both these teams have actually been playing pretty well recently. I just think at the end of the day, the Falcons' defense is still not very good. AJ Terrell has been fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but their defense still has definitely struggled, and their offense is hot and cold from week to week. The Niners, they're fighting for their lives right now, man. They need to win out if they want to make the playoffs, again, in a very tough division conference race right now in the NFC. And between the two, San Francisco at home, I think they've got a bit more momentum. Jimmy Garoppolo is actually playing very good football right now, which might open up a bit of a quarterback controversy in San Francisco, which isn't necessarily the worst thing to have in the world if at least one of them is playing good. But with Jimmy Garoppolo playing so great, the defense is really stepping up. Nick Bosa, I think, is putting himself in that Defensive Player of the Year conversation. Kyle Shanahan has been coaching pretty good for the most part, and he's definitely, I think, he's nearing that part of right now where he's kind of coaching for his job because he's not been too great of a coach outside of that one Super Bowl run. So for a team like the Niners, they've got a lot riding on their shoulders right now. They've got a lot going for them. They're a better team than the Falcons, so I will take them to move up to 500. Then we have the Seahawks in LA, and it's really tough because I actually kind of want to take Seattle in this game. The Rams have so many guys out to COVID. It's, again, stupid. I already went on this rant with, the Browns, but it's stupid to me that they're still being forced to play. But at the end of the day, I do think they're still a better team than Seattle this year. They've got some good players out, but they still have a lot of their main guys playing as far as I know, unless Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Matt Stafford goes on the COVID list out of nowhere that I've not heard of. They've still got a lot of their main guys. Sean McVay is still a great coach, and honestly, he's better than Pete Carroll at this point. Pete Carroll, there's Seahawks fans who want Pete Carroll gone because he's legitimately not been a very good play caller this year. More to the fact that he's just not he's not evolving his play calling, and teams figure you out if you don't evolve in play calling. So with a team like the Rams, they're better in my opinion. They've got a better coach right now, better play calling. Even with those guys out, I will take them in a close game because the Rams they're trying to win the division right now. Beating the Cardinals last week, it puts you right back in that race. And so I think you can't just go and drop a game like this against the Seahawks. Where yes, I understand there's a lot of injuries, but I think the Rams still pull it off. Then moving on, we have the Packers in Baltimore, and to be honest, I think this would be a decently easy win for the Packers, even if Lamar was playing. Now that Lamar might not be playing, and if he does, he's going to be hurt. I don't think it's much of a competition. The Packers are arguably the best team in football right now. Aaron Rodgers would be my pick for MVP right now. That's how good he's been. The defense has really stepped up, and keep in mind, the Packers don't even have Jair Alexander, Zadarius Smith, Robert Tonyan, David Bakhtiari. They haven't even really been using Aaron Jones recently. This team actually has a lot of their top players out, and they've still been balling. Matt LaFleur, obviously a great... did I just say Matt LaFleur? Wow. Matt LaFleur. Is that his name? I'm having a complete brain fart right now. I'm thinking of the Jets OC, aren't I? No, it's Matt LaFleur. I don't know what I'm talking about. Matt LaFleur, great head coach. I think to some degree, definitely been carried so far by Aaron Rodgers early on in his career, but a great head coach. And the Ravens, they've dropped a few games recently, and honestly, I think a lot of it actually has been on Harbaugh because I think that team's really starting to depend solely on Lamar for offense. And yeah, they've had a lot of injuries this year. I get it. but they've lost some games that they very much could have won if not for depending so much on Lamar, who's now hurt because of it, and not for some of the play calling. So, like I said, even if Lamar was playing healthy, I'd still take the Packers. Now that he might not play or that he's going to be hurt while doing so, I'm taking the Packers in a pretty easy win here to keep as the number 1 seed in the NFC. Then for Sunday Night Football, we have what's not going to be a very competitive game. We have the Saints in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay trying to keep afloat in the NFC as well. Not keep afloat. I mean, like they're trying to win the conference, obviously. Tom Brady playing amazing right now. The defense has really stepped up more recently. And with the Saints, another team that's been hit really hard by injuries this year. COVID has gotten them a bit recently. And Sean Payton is now out with COVID. So you take the one thing that can make that offense do anything pretty much when you have Jameis Winston out and Michael Thomas and Teron Armstead for a bit. When you have those guys out, Sean Payton's like the one guy that gives you a chance on offense to win it because he is such a great offensive mind. Now that you don't even have him, there's no way that your defense alone is winning you a game against a good team like the Buccaneers. Even though their defense is great, Marshall Lattimore's great, Demario Davis is great, their offense is so poor. They don't even have their elite offensive head coach. I think the Buccaneers handle business pretty easily here and move up to 11-3, whereas the Saints continue to sink. And then last but not least, we have our Monday Night Football game with the Vikings in Chicago. I mean, anything could happen with the Vikings at this point. They lost to the Lions. I don't know how Mike Zimmer still has a job, but he does. I think if he does lose this game, he really does have to be fired. And it's going to be a close game because, division game in Chicago, Justin Fields has started to play much better than he did at the first. If you know me, I'm not a very big Justin Herbert guy, Justin Fields guy. I'm not a big Justin Fields guy. And by the way, I don't know why the Bears say 8-9 projected. They were 3-14 projected. But either way, I'm not a big Justin Fields guy, but he did play great. He played pretty good last week, and if he can continue to do that, he definitely gives a fighting chance for the Bears, and they can certainly pull off this upset. Vikings lost to the Lions. Do I think they do it? Not quite. I think they'll make it a close game, mostly because Mike Zimmer is such an idiot. But that Vikings team, it's really disappointing that they have such a great offense, and their defense is really not that bad, but I think at the end of the day, Mike Zimmer is the issue. If he wasn't their head coach, they'd probably be, 7-6 or 8-5 or something. Because Justin Jefferson, Justin Jefferson's playing like he could be one of the greatest of all time by the end. Kirk Cousins has been great this year. When he's played, and been used, Dalvin Cook's been great. Adam Thielen's still been great. But that team they've lost games. They've had way too many close games. You're up 29-0 at halftime, or like 29-3 or whatever, and you almost lose that game. That's really sad. So it'll be a close game. I will still take the Vikings in this one, though. But that is going to be my Week 15 predictions for the 2021 NFL season. If you enjoyed, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. If you like the content, just subscribe. I just recommend it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.